So we're going to talk about the product now, which is very near and dear to my heart. And you guys, I love Dataiku's product. I really do. So much so that I dressed as it today. I keep this dress just for events because I feel so in tune with the teal. And I'm going to see if Doug's comment about Toronto competitiveness really holds true, because Dallas did a really poor showing on this. So for those of you that can see my belt, okay, I don't know how many of you are users, and Jean-Guillaume, I really hope you get this. Does anybody recognize what element, what recipe this might be? I need to hear it. I got one. Anybody recognize this? You all are going to come up with me after and tell me you know the answer, but you were embarrassed. This is a join recipe. And if you don't know, I really want you to go to the website and YouTube. But that's just for fun. What I'm going to talk about today is what is coming in the product and what we've done in the last 6 to 12 months. There's been a lot of advancements. It's hard to keep up. Tech is moving fast, so we're going to crash course it for you. But not all of you may be super familiar with Dataiku's platform. If you're not currently a customer with us, we're very broad, we're very deep. So I'm going to kind of tell you, we say the universal AI platform. What does that mean? First, it means that your people can be diverse roles and skill sets. Doesn't matter. We're multi-persona, so people who are your most advanced code-first audiences, data scientists, ML engineers, data engineers, they can go in, they can use it with code, notebooks, that type of thing, all the way to your business users, your domain experts who prefer a point-and-click visual GUI. That works too. And the beauty of Dataiku is that they can work together in the same platform. There's not like this passing, throwing over the wall type of silo. When it comes to data, we are kind of agnostic. You keep data where you want it, on-prem, in flat files, in the cloud, all of the above. We just connect to it. We don't have to copy it all. We sort of just connect to it where it lives. We process it where it lives. When it comes to governance, you'll recognize Dataiku's iconic flow, and that's kind of the heart of governance, even though you probably don't think about it, because it really shows the life cycle from soup to nuts of how data moves through a pipeline into your final data product. And then we also have that dedicated module, for those of you that are aware, called Dataiku Govern, and that's really designed to allow you to manage your entire AI portfolio against regulatory policies, as well as any internal governance policies that your company or industry requires. And finally, technology. From the beginning, from our inception, we've been agnostic, aggressively agnostic is what we say, right? We work with your tech stack today. We're flexible enough to work with what your tech stack will be tomorrow. And I talked about this morning with Gen AI, how quickly things are moving. One customer at an event about a month ago said to us, we've been at Dataiku, a customer, for 6 or 7 years, and our tech stack has changed. We've migrated to the cloud. We've had 3 or 4 big shifts, and our end users don't even know. They don't care. That experience for our workers, our data knowledge workers, has stayed the same. So that's really great for us to hear. So what are we doing now? What are our 3 kind of main pillars for our roadmap? Well, the first, not surprisingly, is helping you all build enterprise-grade Gen AI applications and embed that into the fabric of your business. We're trying to help everyone go faster and always make it more accessible to more types of users. So we are pretty committed to always giving coders what they need, getting out of their way when we can't help, but making sure that things don't have a technical ceiling so that a business user runs out of road and now has to toss it to the COE or the data scientist who sits in another part of the building. And finally, we're really concerned with those operations frameworks and governance frameworks that allow you to build and maintain those data products at scale. So first things first, we're going to kind of dive into that generative AI diagram. I showed this, I guess not this morning, but at the very beginning of the event. And a little bit of a different view than that architecture I showed. But it's the same type of concept, right? You have a slew of models, you have retrieval services, AI services, and you combine them with your own knowledge banks, maybe in a vector store. You use tools and agents, and ultimately those things get exposed to end users through applications, either standalone or embedded into the portal that you have for your customers, or your intranet portal. It's exposed to them in some way. And what we're seeing is that a lot of people can do the first two parts of this block, but where it starts to get really sticky is that operationalization process. How do we monitor the quality? How do we check for what we would consider drift, right? The LLM ops part of this. And it can get pretty messy with 10, 50, 100 disparate apps. So when we think about what we provide, let's start with the LLM mesh, because that's the concept that you all are familiar with, and it's really the cornerstone of our product development right now, because it's so important to everything that comes on top. So this is that decoupled layer that I talked about, where you can have a secure gateway to models and services from any provider. If you want to use the cloud, you have committed spend. You want to use Databricks' models or Bedrock, you can do that. If you want to go to Hugging Face and download an open source model and fine tune it and register that, you can do that. So we provide a way to abstract that so that the users don't have to worry about the complexity of all the different ways to call and query those different services. Now, IT kind of handles that. That's the enabling layer. The builders care about, do I have access to the models that are approved for me, and can I go fast? And this is where these accelerators really come into play. So for business users, we have out-of-the-box NLP recipes that replace those long NLP pipelines we used to do. For me, it was maybe 10 years ago in a former life. We talked about parsing and tokenization and topic modeling and content categorization. And now it's literally select your text column, tell me the categories you want, hit run. Sentiment, done, right? So we've replaced hours and hours of specialized NLP work with out-of-the-box visual recipes. And then for those people who are writing more custom things, you want to do prompt engineering. I talked about that. Prompt Studios is this great interface where you can design, you can test the prompts you're giving to models, see how it compares one model versus another, and then kind of look at the costs that are being generated so you can make those trade-offs before recommending which is the right one to operationalize in your flow. Dataiku Answers, we're going to talk about more in just a second. That's a really exciting wrappered front end for a conversational AI interface. So when you want to ask, what's our internal HR policy, your employees can go to that app, and it goes and it looks at our, Dataiku's internal HR policies, and it gives me a good answer. And all those types of conversational chat use cases, including chatting with data. So we'll talk about that more in a second. Okay, so that's all great. People can build fast, but things can get messy when people build fast, as we talked about. So you need that layer of federated services I talked about. And this is really the guard services. So these are available today, and they cover things like cost monitoring, content moderation, quality benchmarking, looking for privacy and security type, privacy leaks, things like that. Governance sits on top. And we have our govern module, which I spoke about, but we also have some specific offerings inside that module that are really going to help you be ready for the EU AI Act and any upcoming regulations. We're kind of keeping abreast of that in different countries to make sure that you all are ready for those regulatory constraints. So let's dig into some of those guard services. I mentioned cost monitoring. One of the most important things is for people to be able to understand where the bills need to be billed back to within the org. So if everybody's hitting these LLMs, who's doing it? For what purpose? Which use case for internal rebilling? And so with CostGuard, we have these detailed logs which we parse into dashboards. You can slice and dice them. We have caching capabilities to help you mitigate some of those costs of repeated queries and people copying models, which cost money to store. Safeguard is the angle that's really designed to, as a watchguard, right? A watchdog, right? does this query or this response have toxic content? Does it contain PII? If it finds it, should it redact it? Should it block it? Should it notify an admin? All these types of things are what's possible. And we're also looking for things like malicious acts, like prompt injection, jailbreak detection, which is when you intentionally try to override the intended behavior of an LLM to try to make it give you things that it's not supposed to and violate its terms. So there are specialized models that we use for those as well. Quality is something that's actually a little bit new. It came out within the last, I'd say, month. We're very excited because, as I mentioned this morning, a lot of the way that we say, oh, this model's doing well is pretty subjective. It's one person looking at a few dozen queries and responses and thinking that's pretty good, but that is hard to benchmark. And it's hard to automate. And so we've provided a whole bunch of automated standard metrics specific for Gen AI that allow you to say, this is good because it's relevant. This is good because it's accurate, according to ground truth. This is providing good substantiated facts as source material. And we can kind of start to have automated LLM ops. Another aspect of quality is the ability to fine-tune models. So, that's kind of where you take an off-the-shelf model and you retrain it a little bit on your own data or your own use case to make it fit for purpose. And then if you saw the Gen AI Jam, hopefully you saw Dataiku Answers. That is that conversational chat app that I talked about. And this is really designed to help you guys not have to have a whole bunch of front-end developers. It can be a lot of work, even if you have data scientists, to do the RAG pipeline, where you're enriching a model with your own information, to have people build the chat interface and serve it to thousands of people. So we've kind of wrappered it for you. It's configurable in a visual interface, so you connect it to your LLM of choice, your vector store of choice. You define how the behavior and the language and the look and feel work. And we have more than 100 of our customers already implemented Dataiku Answers and are collectively serving thousands of end users with chat apps. Okay, LLM registry is something that's coming soon. And this is kind of an augmentation to the model registry that we already have and the bundle registry, if you're familiar with Dataiku. These are our ability for you guys to have a control tower where you can see all the different models and pipelines in flight. Well, now we're going to register LLMs. And why this is really important is somebody in corporate risk or in InfoSec or in legal or somewhere has said, we can use these models for these purposes and those models for other purposes. And it's difficult for people to have visibility into that. And the registry really kind of captures the terms of use and allows teams, as they're doing their governance checklists, to be able to validate that the models are being used for the right purposes, that they have gone through the right series of checks and balances throughout the development process. And the registry is this nice single place that's not an admin layer, but it's really for governance. So let's move out of Gen AI into how we go faster and how we help more people. Dataiku has always cared about this. And stories, oops, I went too far. Productivity assistance is the first thing. Data prep still takes the most time. Even now, I think we said this, 20 years ago, we were still saying data prep takes the most time. It still does. Now, at least you can ask an assistant in most tools, and Dataiku is no different, to just do what you want. I know that this has to happen. I'm going to say it in natural language, and it's going to suggest the processor steps in the prepare recipe for me. But as with anything, I can modify it. I can see what it's doing. It's not a black box. This is just super fast for discovering new ways to use the same processors that you already use also. We also have similar code assistants for code studios and for notebook development. Okay, so same as you would expect with Copilot, that type of thing. And then flow documentation and explanation is a real favorite because nobody likes writing documentation or explaining a flow that you spent your whole life working on, and then somebody says, well, now you have to write about what you did. It's terrible. So this is kind of a nice, easy button for coming into a new project and saying, explain it to me. I don't have to ask the person to sit down and talk me through it. I can push a button and it will say, here's the data it used, it transformed it this way, here's the things it produced. So this is quite nice. Now, Dataiku Stories is also coming out. We're in kind of early adopter phase right now, so we're eager to get some of your feedback. If this is very interesting to you, what I'm about to say, then I encourage you to speak to your account team. This is really about the final mile. And when I say final mile, I don't mean the final data mile. I mean the presentation that gets to the stakeholder in slides. So as we all know, you see a dashboard, you take a screenshot, you paste it into PowerPoint or Google Slides, you present it, they ask a question. That was 3 weeks ago, the data's not fresh, you do the whole thing again. And it's not very dynamic. And so this is really kind of connection to data dynamically. And what's really great is we've built, again, Gen AI assistance into it. So you can just say, create a presentation for me. It should have this for this region, cut by that. And if you don't like the chart, you can say, make that a pie chart. Make it blue. Add a visualization. So it's really like having this fantastic assistant who just does what makes the presentation for you. It's your intern, but they work instantly. So this is a very exciting thing that we're coming out with this year. And then we touched on it very briefly, but let's talk about ops and governance. So when I say XOps, that's kind of the convergence, and you see this being used more and more by Gartner, by Forrester, by IDCs, this convergence of data ops, ML ops, LLM ops, to some extent FinOps, into the things that it's required to bring any kind of data product to production and maintain it throughout its life cycle. And as you know, we have a lot of capabilities that do this inside Dataiku, and our goal is really to remove friction from those processes and make sure that every stakeholder who's involved in that has the tools that they need so that these arduous processes can be a little bit more automated. The biggest push we've made in ops this year is really about interoperability with other platforms. And so we recognize that all of you work at big companies, many of you work at big companies, and you've got these pockets of people, and some of them are developers who are building an ML flow. Maybe they're using Databricks. Some of them are working in platforms like SageMaker or Azure ML or GCP, and they're using their particular platforms, just straight Python and notebooks. Some of you are using Dataiku to make your models. And what we want to do is make it so that no matter where you develop and design your model, you can deploy it somewhere else. And if you've developed it somewhere else, you can still bring it into Dataiku for observability, explainability, and governance. So even if models are developed by teams outside of Dataiku, using different tools, we still can use Dataiku as that single control tower at the airport that can kind of see all the planes in flight and monitor their health. And you get the benefit when you observe a model of the automatic explainability charts some of you may be familiar with. So you can kind of look at bias. You can look at feature importance. You can do what-if analysis, these very important things for data literacy as we expose the models to business users. So this is really about our ecosystem and being kind of a good citizen in the ecosystem, but also giving you that centralized view. Now, I mentioned governance, and I did kind of allude to already the LLM registry, but now I want to talk about EAI Act readiness. So our governance module is really designed to allow you to oversee all the AI projects, the pipelines, the models, have sign-offs and gates and workflows that are standardized across teams, documentation, that kind of thing. This solution is about readiness for the EU AI Act, which is already now, I think it's already been out almost for 6 months. And this, I think, has to be is enforceable within about 1.5 years from now. And this is, of course, EU-based, but for global and multinational companies, this has worldwide implications, and it's something up to 35 million euros or up to 7% of your global intake. So the fines are quite severe for violating this. And so this is a pretty serious thing for regulated industries. I know many of you are in financial services in the room. So what we've done is we've parsed the act. We've kind of looked at that famous pyramid and we've translated it into risk tiers, which then translate into, if you're at the highest risk, these are the gates that you're going to need to pass in order to meet the requirements of the EU AI Act. And this is an off-the-shelf blueprint that will continue to adapt as the act kind of matures. And so for now, I think that's it. I would encourage you, if you have questions about anything that I've talked about, Gen AI, the acceleration components, or ops, to please go visit our demo booths, and they're happy to show you all of this stuff.